Hurricane is brewing at the Lagos State House of Assembly, and the unsettling occurrences are causing havoc across the state. The lawmaking body of the Center of Excellence, Lagos State, was condoned off by operative of the Directorate of State Services, leaving many to question the motives and authority behind such drastic actions. Clad in black jackets and helmets, armed operative clashed with assembly workers in shocking scenes that have since gone viral, raising eyebrows and concerns about the state of governance in Lagos. The name of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was repeatedly invoked amidst this chaos, with some troublemakers attempting to leverage his influence, calling upon the president to intervene. It is imperative that law and order is upheld in Lagos State, particularly in light of the recent removal of a speaker, Honorable Mudashiru Obasa, by his distinguished colleague. Such actions should not result in a breakdown of civic order or the hijacking of legislative functions. On Viewpoint, where we discover perspective and embrace dialogue, we look at the ripples of discontent following the leadership change, suggesting that it may not be supported by certain influential political figures in the state, but a few other factors. I'm Olaiton Babatunde, and with me is Odiawa Hihai. Good day, Odiawa. How are you doing?
Perfectly fine.
It's been a while on the show.
I've definitely been paying attention to political happenings making the rounds.
And that's good. Well, with all these things that you've been paying attention to, I'm sure you're going to shed light on these issues going on in Lagos State
Most
presently.
definitely.
All right. Join us shortly as we go on a short break. You're welcome back to the show. I'm Olaiton Babatunde, and with me is Odiawa Hihai.
Thank you very much. How you doing?
I'm okay. Like I said earlier, there's been a recent issue going on in Lagos State, and I would like to know, you said you've been paying attention to some things going on in the country generally. So in what ways do you think the recent events in the Lagos State House of Assembly, reflect broader issues of governance and political power in Nigeria?
Frankly speaking, there's no how we talk about relevance of political power and governance within Nigeria if you don't talk about political relevance. People want to maintain that relevance before their people, their followers. Why?
Yeah.
Because they don't want to lose taste in the lips or mouths or maybe in their constituency or community. Hence, the continuous wanting to maintain dominance in the Lagos State House of Assembly. Now, it's not even kind of proper now. In the Lagos State House of Assembly, being the number one man, you're the first among equals, elected by your distinguished colleagues to actually lead the House of Assembly. There's no how you get into a particular place. Even in a classroom, you have the class captain. There must always be a captain of the ship. If there's no captain, therefore means that the ship might encounter some shipwreck. That is why you now had someone like Mudashiru Obasa. But when you have tenets of someone who is found wanting, was actually accused of misappropriations of funds. Now, if you go checking the Western world now, when their fingers are being pointed at you, be it an assault case or maybe you've been accused by some lady for sexual misconduct, but in this case, recently was accused of firearms possession within a lawmaking arm. And definitely, you're not even meant to enter the hallowed chamber with such. That also misappropriation of funds. Now, all these things are, kind of indicting to him, and he claims they were not even there. Secondly, or thirdly, rather, he was impeached while he was absent while away in the US. Now, constitutionally speaking, if you've been found wanting concerning all these things, you follow democratic due process. And upon following democratic due process, it's only right that you're impeached. If you go back to medieval times in the Roman Empire, form of impeachment usually was always maybe you come into the Senate, you are stabbed by your colleagues, or even your chief of staff can even overthrow you unexpectedly. It will break you from what happened from Julius Caesar. Yeah. So that is I would say that was a brutal way of impeaching people. But now people have chosen to be civilized. Why? Because of the metamorphosis of democracy, just to pursue peace. Now, in the interest of Obasa now, at a broader picture, now you're looking at it, seeking redress would have been the right option, which I want to believe that he is still tending to. Now, if other people begin to tilt towards his obstinacy not to leave office and still assert that he's actually ruling the Senate, rather, I beg your pardon, the Lagos State House of Assembly, it now begins to put some notion before other state house of assemblies. And before you state Jack Robinson, the opposite of democracy will begin to set in, and that will be anarchy, which nobody will want to actually have a taste of.
Oh, okay. Generally in Nigeria, we have this issue of trust, whereof even the citizens do not trust the people in power because, like you said now about Obasa, there's been rumors coming up against him, and he kept denying it. Well, the media is telling us this, and they are saying another thing. But then, how might the involvement of security agencies like DSS in legislative matters impact public trust in the political system and its institutions?
Well, if we look at it, our leaders, both the political class, the bourgeoisie, those who are even elected into office, and even people who are within office, use these instruments to actually assert their power. Why? Because we come from an era where might is right, no longer where the form of government is right. We want to assert, I mentioned relevance earlier on. We want to assert the fact that we're relevant, we want to show off. It's like, for instance, you're driving in the streets of Lagos or any part of the country, and then you hit someone. The first question is, do you know who I am? So it's not this do you know who I am mentality is why the relevance will always continue to sink into the subconscious. Hence the deployment of the DSS. And there's no fact or there's no security agency that is not headed by any top boss or any security chief. DSS definitely is headed by someone. The NSA is headed by someone. The Nigerian Army, Navy, Air Force, just to mention a few. Now, in this particular way, we need to even checkmate the DSS because if you might recall, during the MFLA court case, they had a clash with the correctional facility operatives, which ought not to be. Now, in a law court, where they are actually interpreting the law. Now, it's quite sad enough again that you have to infiltrate a body that makes the law. Now, Section 8 of the Legislative Act, now it even applies at from the federal level. It actually says that you will not prevent a lawmaker from gaining access to the hallowed chamber. And the DSS had actually violated that. Hence, the backing from not just the distinguished colleagues, but also the staff of the Lagos State House of Assembly, which actually speaks volumes on the part of the DSS, whereby they have actually aired. How oriented are the DSS officials? You don't just come in. It's not a case of wearing your black regalia and coming in with your sophisticated and your helmet, coming up with sophisticated guns. You come in there, when you get into the system, you make sure that you're not just physically oriented, to make sure that you have that stamina to withstand the role of a DSS security personnel. You should also have the intellect. Let's look at the US now. We have SWAT, we have the FBI, we have the police. Irrespective of these agencies which I've mentioned, trying to assert dominance, they all have their functions. They always undergo classes. And when they undergo classes, to reorientate them mentally. The question is how well oriented or how well informed our security operatives are, not just strictly to the DSS now. We're talking about even the Nigerian police or any other one, which of course they mask themselves. So maybe probably it's because they mask themselves. That's why they tend to misbehave, because if they actually facially recognize, I think they will sit up. Because if we look at even the Nigerian police officers, those who want to actually misbehave remove their tags. So these are just things that actually should be checkmated. I want to believe they also have rules and regulations guiding their establishments. And those rules and regulations need to be also checked so that their officers or personnel don't go and start misbehaving right from the boss, even down to the least person within the DSS.
All right. So according to an article that I saw, they stopped Miranda from entering the House of Assembly. So, and according to that article, it was said that it was the House of Assembly that actually invited the DSS because they were sensing there was going to be violence. So can we say that the people who invited them were the one who plotted against Miranda?
Now, we're looking at it. This is where gender bias also sets in, but nobody will actually throw out the truth out there. Earlier on, allies of Mudashiru were actually apprehended when the impeachment process was to take place. Of course, in your absence, there are loyalists who will actually fight for you. Now, in this case now, who actually requested for the presence of the DSS is another question. Who actually did that? Because if the sitting speaker, who is actually Honorable Miranda, will actually request for the DSS, they will not prevent her from going in. Why? Because intel has actually gotten to them. So it therefore means it's the opposition who is still restating and reiterating that he was not impeached, still imposing himself as the sitting speaker, but has refused to vacate official quarters, neither has he agreed to be present. So it's a case of people not knowing, or constituents or party or legislators not knowing their responsibilities. It's not just coming in there and taking your allowances, whether it's wardrobe allowance or whatever, and then you hit the gavel after some nays or eyes have it. So you come in there knowing that you're knowledgeable about what ought to be. You don't obstruct a speaker. If the speaker actually ordered that the DSS be there, it was their duty to actually guide her from outside, even to the doorstep of the hallowed chamber. Not that you're already inside the hallowed chamber before the leader of the hallowed chamber will get in.
Yeah, with what you just said, it made me remember what happened in Osun State recently, where the sitting governor uploaded a press release talking about how the former governor, who is now the Minister of Marine and Blue Economy, former governor Boyega Oyetola, is interfering with the local government election. And it's just made it obvious that most times when people who leaves the power, when they leave, they still want to have a hold on what's going on in that constituency, which I feel it's wrong. When you lose in an election, you should let it go. You should, take the back door. So in this case, I feel like Obasa, knowing that he has been impeached, I really do not think, since they even elected someone else, he doesn't need anybody to tell him that he's off that chamber and he should move on from there.
Well, what I would say concerning that is, power corrupts absolutely, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. That's what is always said in politics.
Okay.
And it's always about interest and why maintaining relevance. It's like you trying to like maintain, okay, even there. Obasa, as we speak now, relaying it now to Osun State.
Yeah.
He has been there for 20-something years. And 20-something years is more than enough for you to have tasted the good life. So I don't think you should be greedy to want more 20-something years or continue your stay in the number one seat. Every other person should have a fair share as far as I'm concerned.
Sure.
Now, going over to Osun State politics, not to deviate now.
Yeah.
Osun State politics, local government elections, we just actually took place. Fine. If we look at it, it's a game of power tussle. The APC and the PDP. It's common knowledge that majority of the states within the 36 in which we have now is dominantly APC. We should now look at it that even the PDP that is trying to grab some little scavings, climb out from the ditch. Why? Because of its limited number in controlling states. We should pay attention to the fact that PDP within Osun State doesn't want to let its guard down. The same way they actually did in the recent elections last year in Ondo and Edo State. They didn't want to let their guard down, but they lost those states. So if they will actually lose these states, and of course, Oyo State, which is also another PDP state, they will actually lose grip totally because of their internal crisis. But the APC now currently still having their own internal crisis. We hope it doesn't end up like PDP.
All right. So I'd like to know what steps can be taken to ensure that leadership changes within legislative bodies are conducted transparently and in accordance with due process.
Well, for the legislative process to be fair enough, following due process, I would say it's a democratic setting. And as such, we should stick to the fact that there should be stipulated number of months or years for a legislative member. If there are no stipulated months or years, just as the president's running for 4 years, which is one term or one tenure, then maybe another 4 years, which is a second term or second tenure. If the legislative head, be it at the senatorial level or the House of Rep, the Green Chamber, or the state level, if there are no number of years stipulated or defined by the Constitution, they will continue to abuse that power. That is why the likes of Obasa was being called an emperor, because that seat, you can stay there for as long as you like, provided you have majority on your side. A situation whereby you don't have majority on your side and they begin to tilt towards another person, then there are question marks, 2/3. Now, in the Lagos State House of Assembly, you have 39 seats. Out of those 39, 37 actually denied Obasa and went over for Miranda. So that speaks volumes. So that vote of confidence is what should actually speak out.
All right. Now, what are the potential implications for Lagos state governance if Governor Sanwo-Olu chooses to remain silent on the leadership crisis in the House of Assembly? Because, I said it when I heard about the Osun State brouhaha, I said something about
Bruh.
if the governor did not say anything, people will see him as a puppet, which is not even good for his own image. But then in this situation, what do you think Sanwo-Olu can do?
First of all, this is a body or an entity or arm of government in which he is answerable to. For instance, he needs to present the yearly budget for the fiscal year. He definitely needs to step in. It's like a father who bans the house, husband, the father. If the wife is misbehaving or the children are misbehaving or a robber gets in, if the father can't stand up, as far as I'm concerned, he's a toothless bulldog. If you can't, there are some fathers who, when they raise their voices, you could feel the vibration on the wall.
Yeah.
You could feel the vibration on the chair. Some will not even talk. They have their ways of putting checks and balances. If it's a father who he knows, yes, he was always subscribing the child's phone for maybe internet data, okay, I know what to do. So by the time he denies you internet data for 1 quarter, then you're not working.
Yeah.
You will go and beg. So that is a way of controlling the house. So if someone who now, as the head of Lagos, now the number one man in Lagos, cannot speak up, it therefore means that he lacks the tooth to speak or doesn't have the right strength to throw a punch to make sure everything is in check. But regardless, people have also been clamoring for the father figure of the APC, who is also very well recognized in the APC, Bola Ahmed Tinubu,
Tinubu.
to actually come in. So I think maybe for someone who not to have spoken yet, politically speaking, he must have been respecting level of hierarchy that Baba hasn't spoken.
Yeah.
Until he speaks, he takes order, he will know how to operate. So I think we need to follow due process and recognize the who is who in politics based on allegiance.
All right, thank you very much. Now, this tussle between the House of Assembly, how do you think it can affect the relationship between the state and the federal government? Particularly, you mentioned that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu being the number one in the country, Sanwo-Olu might be waiting for him to say something. But then, how do you think this issue can affect the state and the federal government?
But there's no how it will not affect the states and the federal government side by side on a parallel note. Why? Because he was a former governor. And of course, being a former senator, he should know legislative functions properly. And also now being the number one man of the country. But still yet, he is in the ruling party, the APC. And the ruling party is also dominant within Lagos State. That is
Yeah.
where he now comes in as a chieftain of the political party. But still on still, Lagos State since 1999 has witnessed 26 years of democracy. You don't expect a 26-year-old to still be breastfed. There are some times you need to use your initiative to improvise. So you don't expect your dad every time to come and remind you need to take your shower.
Sure.
You don't need your dad or your mom to remind you that you need to prepare your food or maybe brush your teeth or do some basic moves which you should actually do for yourself. So Lagos State on his own part should leave President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. I'm still coming to his level of involvement as a father figure, being duly
Okay.
recognized. Now, Lagos State should actually leave him in the sense that he's paying attention to more pressing matters. He has left the state level.
Level.
He's not playing that state ball match anymore. He's playing in the pitch of the National League. You have the regional bloc, the ECOWAS, which is chairman. Then he will also have the AU to play with, and of course, which is a continental body, and other global bodies, which Nigeria actually belongs to. So that is enough headache for him to have than have a minute headache such as Lagos, which of course 26-year-old democracy within Lagos can handle. But still on still, why he should come in as a strategist, we look at it that Sanwo-Olu on his own part is from Lagos Central.
Okay.
The deputy governor, Hamzat, is from Lagos East. So they would definitely need someone from Lagos West. Why? Because zoning needs to be respected. Everybody is adequately respected. That hence will now be federal, in this case now, state character. Each senatorial or district is actually, rather, legislative district is actually represented within the chamber. Because if you marginalize Lagos Western region, which is the Lagos West, which is actually the largest, it will speak volumes. It will look as if there's going to be an arrest of Lagos between Lagos East and also Lagos Central, which will not be fair. Because recently it was a case of how do I come in now and settle the issue? According to reports on this day, which I read earlier on as of today, it was actually said that a resolution had actually been reached And it's such that Miranda is not actually from Lagos West.
West, okay.
She's actually from Lagos Central. So she cannot fill in for there to be balance, whereby Obasa is not insulted by being impeached, but rather he should resign. Miranda is also resigning also. But let's see how that pans out in the long run. Then for gender basis and balance, so that Miranda on her own part is not feeling usurped by another man, whereby they
Yeah.
say there is gender inequality. It's now a case of trying to bring another female figure from Lagos West so that everything is actually balanced. Everyone goes home fine.
All right. Earlier I talked about what's happening in Osun State presently.
Yeah.
So I would like us to compare the political crisis to that of River State, Osun State, and Kano, as mentioned by Fuhad Oki.
Okay, according to Fuhad Oki, it's a case of interest.
Okay.
A situation where, and there's no how we'll not talk about this, that we won't talk about state creation.
Okay.
Now, looking at it now, those who are actually representing their constituencies within the legislature come from different constituents. And these constituents are also having ethnic groups. These ethnic groups have their own villages, and they're also clamoring for boundaries. Why? Because the next village or the next ethnic group is marginalizing them. Why? Because maybe they are more in number and they are few in number. All these things will now begin to grow and brew, and they will relate to their constituent representatives. Those ones will now begin to transit to their leader, and those ones will transfer to the federal level. So by the time we look at it and weigh all these options or variables, we now begin to look at it that actually representation is actually key.
Okay. So how do you think the emotional response of Speaker Mojisola Meranda during the preliminary reflect the broader challenges faced by female leaders in male-dominated political environments? I can remember as a last year, we were talking about how the government wants inclusivity, and we were even talking about how they wanted people in the diaspora, how they wanted women to participate in politics. And with the situation that just happened in Lagos State, it's looking like that might not be so much accepted over there, and it could be because of that. Yeah, because telling the speaker to stay outside, like he's more like a stopping the man of the house from entering his house. So in that kind of situation, I would like to know, like, what do you think about what happened and a response to towards the plenary during the interview we had?
Well, from what I had watched, actually, in my own opinion, I will always advocate for what is in line with best global practices, and that is inclusive governance. No one should be marginalized, particularly if you're practicing democracy here, where everyone has equitable rights. Be so far you're old enough to vote. That's another thing. Now, when it comes to inclusive government or when it comes to governance of inclusivity, women should not be relegated, because if we look at it, going down memory lane to Funmilayo Ransome Kuti, who is actually one of the frontliners for the suffragette movement, where women have to actually stand up to vote.
And we also have the women of Abad, then also,
Of course, trying to assert their different. But when we now look at it, we have this male-centric ideology whereby the man is always in charge. And this has transcended from a rural orientation to institutionalized orientations, whereby the man is always at the forefront. It's like maybe in Yoruba parlance, they say, you want Obìnrin, they won't let you pass. Same thing in where I'm from too. They will not let you pass. So if at all a father dies now, in any part of the country, where's the first son? If the first son is not there, there's a second son. Even if there's a first daughter, they will bypass the first daughter and go over to the second son. So it's a patrilineal thing. And this ideology has shifted to the sense, to our governmental system of our governmental functions. And people who are the people in government, the people in government are people that are coming from this patrilineal background. So they will fix up that mentality into governance and make sure they put apparatus in place, though not put in pen and paper, but they just put it in pen and paper to ink it down. But vices are there to make sure that the women don't make it. But I will always advocate that any system of government that is coming in, so far the woman or the women have what it takes, definitely they have every right for inclusive governments to participate.
Yeah, I think now we should focus more on their achievements rather than their gender, because I also believe that there are women who can also make sure things work better for us in the country. And I think I also believe what you said when you said, you've been paying attention and observing things that are going on in the country, because the answers you gave to some of these questions, it's so much more like, yes, you're
Particularly the
enlightened.
gender issue.
Exactly.
Thank you very much.
All right, so thank you very much for joining me on Viewpoint today. In a city where politics can change as swiftly as the tides, one thing is clear. The storm in the Lagos State House of Assembly is far from over. Will the winds of change sweep through, or will the status quo prevail? This has been Viewpoint, and I'm Olaiton Babatunde, and with me has been Odia Wahehai.
Thank you for having me.
You can follow us on all our social media platforms at Veegil Media. Thank you for watching.